Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Bhagavatam. Today we are reading from Canto 11, text number 25, chapter number 25, which is called The Three Modes of Nature and Beyond. So for those of you that are new to the idea of the modes of nature, I would describe them in modern day language as the states of consciousness. And there are three specific states of consciousness that the Vedas talk about. We're going to go into that in great detail today, and we're going to see the effect that they have upon us, and then what we can do to get free from that. So let's begin with Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan, said to his friend Uddhava, whom he is speaking to. This is the Uddhava Gita we're on. And he says, "O best among men," because Uddhava was very, very knowledgeable, extremely devoted, and the best of devotees in that sense. So, best among men, please listen as I describe to you how the living entity means the soul, attains a particular nature by association with the individual material modes. Now, the modes of nature are very specific. They're almost like energy fields. That might be another way to explain them in modern day terms. And depending on how we interact with the world around us, they will have different kinds of effect upon us. These are energy fields, and your actions, your thoughts, the way you deal with your mind, the way you interact with the world, all of that is going to affect which energy field you will attract from the modes of nature and how it impacts you. It will determine your entire psychological and spiritual makeup. You will think, this is who I am, but this is not who you are. Who you are is a product of the influence of the three modes of nature upon you. So let's start to understand them more clearly, and you'll get to see it without much discussion here. You'll be able to figure it right out. So the first one talked about is Sattva Gun. Sattva Gun is known as the mode of goodness. And the symptoms of that are that your mind is in control. I think this might be better if we put it like this. Hold on a moment, please. There we go. So, the symptom of Sattva Gun is that your mind is in control of you instead of the other way around. For most of us, our mind is controlling us. But in Sattva Gun, your mind is under your control. That's the big difference. Right? Now let's come to the next one. And that is called the other next symptom, that your senses are under your control. That you're tolerant. So if you're in the mode of goodness, you'd be experiencing these symptoms. You'd be very tolerant. You would be very discerning. In other words, you're able to watch your thoughts. You're able to watch your mind. And you're able to discern what is right, what is wrong. You're able to have a better sense of what's going on, more clarity, more objectivity, and less reactivity. Reactivity is not in the mode of goodness at all. It is in the mode of goodness that your mind is quiet, your mind is still, and you're able to discern things. Just like when the water in a cloudy, let's say if you put a bunch of dye or dirt into water and then you'll stir it up, it's all cloudy. And most of our minds are like that, very cloudy. But if you let that dirt settle down through practice of meditation or any other spiritual practice, you will find that your mind becomes clear. And then discernment, you'll be able to see things more objectively and more clearly and see it and respond from a place that is more effective rather than reactive. At the same time, you will find your mind and senses under control. So you see all these things start to now come into play or start to become part of that same state of consciousness, you will do your prescribed duty at the same time. So you're going to do what you got to do, which is your work, which is your prescribed duty. You will be truthful. These will come naturally to you, and you will be merciful, compassionate, kind, loving. All of that will be natural to you. Most people aren't like that. They're not necessarily merciful. They get angry at a moment's notice. They get rageful, wrathful. So these are the qualities of goodness, and they will be in you. It's not about being a good person or being a good human being, as some people would say, I just want to be a good human being. That's a very vague idea. What does being a good human being mean? I'd love for you to define that. Oh, I'm just nice to everybody. Being nice, what is that? Right? Does that mean being some kind of pushover? Does it mean that you're just smiling at everybody? Is that what nice is? No, that's very vague. The mode of goodness here is a set of qualities that arise in a person with a certain kind of consciousness. And we need to become aware of that. It's not just some random thing. And there's a bunch more. These are only 7 that we've talked about so far. As we go further, we'll see more. Then there's about becoming very observant, being able to observe things. Again, because your mind is quiet, you're able to observe. You're able to be more discriminating, now these days is a bad word, so you're able to be more discerning, right? You're able to feel more satisfied within yourself, more content with life, more peaceful, more generous. You have a sense of detachment from the things of the world. Things, they're there. If they're not there, they're not there. You're not too disturbed by the situations, by circumstances. Whether the markets go up or down, you're detached from that. You're able to take things in your stride. At the same time, you have a certain faith, a faith not just in God, but in life, a faith that things will be okay, faith that you're protected, that you're safe, that you're taken care of. There's a sense of well-being, and that arises not from taking some classes and courses on well-being or studying some techniques on well-being to program yourself or give yourself some affirmations. Everything's okay, I'm safe, I'm well. No, not affirmations. This is a natural state arising from within you. It is a state of consciousness that is arising from the mode of goodness. How we're going to get there will be explained, but let's just continue to understand it a little better. You're also more charitable, and more generous, more giving, more helping of others, and you live a simple life. Furthermore, you have humility. You're not vain, you're not arrogant, you're not proud. You have humility, natural humility. And more than anything, I think this is perhaps the most important, you're self-satisfied. You're content and satisfied within yourself. That's a very important quality to have. Satisfaction is not because you have so much. It is regardless of the circumstances, regardless of what you have or don't have, regardless of what other people are doing. You are content and satisfied within yourself. Now, you may have some of these qualities, and you may have some of the other qualities we're now going to talk about, because there is a mixture that often happens. We may have some qualities from the mode of goodness, some qualities from the mode of passion, and some qualities from the mode of ignorance. Try and become aware of these. Go back over this video and watch this again, because I've put it down very systematically for you to be able to explore. Okay, now we're coming to the next type of consciousness or state of mind, and that is called Rajogun. Rajogun is the mode of passion. So this is a particular kind of consciousness in which a person has a lot of material desires. They make great endeavor. They work hard. They want to achieve things. They're very driven. They're very passionate. They want to make things happen. They are go-getters. They are the people who excel in life. They're the ones who make things happen. The people in the mode of goodness are more peaceful. They're not so driven like that. That to them, it's making a ton of money, aspiring to become rich. It's not so important. They're more interested in spirituality. They're more interested in metaphysical things. They're more interested in religion. They're more interested in what makes one peaceful and happy from within. But the person in the mode of passion seeks their happiness from outside, wants but enjoying their senses, by having more and more desires. The person in the mode of goodness wants to minimize their desires, simplify their life. So in the mode of passion, one engages in great endeavor. At the same time, one often has a lot of audacity, is willing to take a lot of risks, is willing to say what nobody else is willing to say. There's a lot of dissatisfaction within, and this is an important driving force. Dissatisfaction can be a very negative thing. It can make you bitter and make you complaining. But if harnessed properly, that very dissatisfaction can lead you to constantly seek to improve and achieve and to have more and more and more. Except that the more you have, the more you achieve, the more you are recognized or respected, the dissatisfaction doesn't leave you. It still stays with you. And that's the strange thing about it. So in the mode of passion, even though you're very driven and even though you may have everything, you still remain discontent or dissatisfied. And there's something that often causes people to think, well, why is that? A person who doesn't have anything can still, say, oh, I'm dissatisfied because I don't have. But the person who has everything and is still dissatisfied, now he doesn't know where to go. He doesn't know what to turn to. What could be the cause of this? I thought that if I have a lot of money, if people respect me, if I'm famous, if I am the number one, then I will be satisfied. I will be content. I will be fulfilled. I will be happy. But it hasn't happened. So I try to get more and more and more and more. It becomes a vicious cycle. All right. So the other thing that starts to happen is that because the person has now achieved so much, there's often a sense of false pride. Why false? False because it's based upon false things. It's based upon external things that are here today, gone tomorrow. Today your mother markets are up and you're prospering. The markets crash down and your money is gone. So it's false in that sense. This is not coming from a real place. Your real strengths, that's not arrogance. You might be good at math. You might be good at writing. That's your real strength. But to say you're the best or the greatest or the most, that's what narcissists do, right? And that kind of exaggeration of your qualities is what we call false pride. And then, of course, such persons are often praying for wealth. They're often going to God, God, give me more money, give me more, give me, give me, give me, give me, give me. And God becomes their Santa Claus from whom they can go and they can pray and they can get whatever they want. And they're just basically exploiting their God or their religion. Because in their mind, in the person who is in the mode of passion, they see themselves as superior to everyone. They see themselves as better. If they don't see themselves that way, they want to be that way. They want to have a sense of superiority. They want to have a sense that I matter. I am significant. I am respected. And while this sounds very natural to us, it's actually part of the false ego, the false sense of self. My significance, my mattering is not a product of what I have, of what I do, of how I look, or of what people think of me. This is all false. This is all shallow. This can be taken away at any time. And when it is, then our whole house of cards comes crumbling down. All right, so the other qualities of the person in the mode of passion is that they want to enjoy their senses as much as possible. I mean, they're working hard. They want to enjoy. They want to have a good time. They want to have a lot of sex, a lot of money, a lot of fun, gambling, going to casinos, going on vacations, any which way to enjoy their senses. They're often quite ready to fight. I don't know about eagerness, but they're quite ready to, squabble. They're passionate about their thoughts, their beliefs, and they love praise. At the same time, they're very inclined to ridicule others and often are boastful of the power and importance that they have. They will often justify themselves or because they're powerful. And that in itself is their greatest justification. So before we go to Tamagun, I want you to meditate upon this. You may have some of the qualities of the mode of goodness that we talked about earlier. You may have some of the qualities of the mode of passion. Now let us look at the mode of ignorance. Right? This is Tamagun. So Tamagun is where we're sort of intolerant and angry inside. You see a lot of this in our world today, where people are intolerant of others, where they're angry. They feel insecure and they let that out on others, perhaps on another race, perhaps on another gender or another religion. That insecurity, that intolerance, that anger is driven by the mode of ignorance. It's a very low state of consciousness. Of course, such a person thinks that they're very advanced. They think they're better, they're best, superior. I know what's wrong with you people. Person in the mode of ignorance or tamagun also tends to not be willing to spend money. They're holding on to it. They're very stingy. So the opposite of mode of goodness, where the person is very generous, here in the mode of ignorance, they tend to be very stingy. There's a lot of falsity. They're not authentic. They're not authentic in following any scripture or any such thing. Their falsity is that there's a pretense of trying to act as if they're so cool or so great or so wonderful. Right? So there's a falsity in their life. And at the same time, there's a non-acceptance of any standards that might be set by any kind of religion or scripture or any other such process. I call it anti-dharma. Right? There's also a lot of hatred within their hearts, and which can often turn to violence. This is all a product of the mode of ignorance. They tend to be very parasitic. They want to they believe the world owes them, that they are somehow victims. And so there can be two kinds. There can be those who are very grand, but those tend to be more in the mode of passion. But the ones who are in the mode of ignorance tend to often see themselves as victims. They often see themselves as being used, manipulated, taken advantage of, and therefore it's this poor me story. And so they can be very parasitic in wanting to take from society because they feel they've been wronged. They were abused as a kid, or their race, their gender, whatever was not treated well, and therefore the world owes them, and they feel entitled to take from others and not necessarily give back. And of course, this leads to a lot of hypocrisy. And they're often very exhausted, drained. There's chronic fatigue, which often leads then to depression. They can also be very quarrelsome. There's a lot of lamentation, delusion, unhappiness, depression. They tend to sleep a lot. They have false expectations from others. They feel that others are supposed to do things, and they don't need to really thank them because they're supposed to do stuff for them. So these false expectations from the world, from people, from their relatives, from their friends. But inside, they're unhappy. Inside, there's a sense of sadness and grief. And it can go from sadness and grief to anger and hatred. So this is the mode of ignorance. It's really devastating. Behind it is fear. fear that then comes out as the victim mode, but then it also leads to, it's debilitating, and it leads to laziness. So, what do you think? Where did you find yourself in this whole assessment of the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance? What qualities did you experience within yourself? All right, as I said, there's often a combination of the modes of nature. And the first place this shows up, this combination shows up, is in the thinking that this is me and this is mine. I and mine. I am this body. I am my thoughts. I am my emotions. I am my life story. And these are my things. This is my husband. This is my wife. This is my children. This is my house, my car, my bank balance. Mine. I and mine. And this is the crux of our consciousness, the material consciousness. It keeps us stuck in this world and in this life. It also keeps us stuck within our mind. And what is important to us then is the objects of perception, the things we see. Those are the things we want. Those are the things we desire. So we're caught up in our desires. Because we perceive something, we believe it to be true. We believe that perception is reality. That what I perceive, what I think, what I feel is truth. But that's the biggest lie. Because whatever you perceive is filtered through your senses and filtered through your mind. Your mind is not a product of something absolute. It is a product of the world, of how you were programmed by the world, how you were conditioned. It's a product of all the impressions, from the advertising to the religious or the non-religious things, to the education, to the parenting, to the friends. All of that has gone and lodged itself in your mind and created a sense of who you are and what the world is. Those are all the impressions, the sanskars. And those sanskars now, that subconscious impressions, they are now interpreting the world. You are not seeing things as they are. You are seeing things as you are. It's a famous saying. I'm not sure who said it, but we don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. I think it was Wayne Dyer, if I'm not wrong. So we're caught up in this mixture of the modes of nature. We are caught up in, number one, the concepts of I and mine. Number two, we're caught up in our mind, our emotions, our subconscious, all of that. We're caught up in the objects of perception, to which we give great importance. We're also caught up in our senses, and our life energy is basically devoted to the pursuit of whatever our senses want, whatever our mind wants, whatever the objects are that we desire. Basically, our prana or life energy is now being 100% devoted towards fulfilling our desires. So all of us think we're independent. We think we're free. But that is the last thing we are. We are not the land of the free. We are the land of the enslaved. And I don't mean that by some conspiracy theory. I prove it to you as a fact. We are enslaved by our mind, our senses, our imagination, our desires, our conditioning, all of that. We are enslaved by that. And that is running the show. We are not running the show. We have not even, for the most cases, we have not even met ourselves. We do not really know, who am I? Some people do. But for the most part, you won't know who you are until you've learned how to quiet your mind. It's not a theoretical thing. It's not a conceptual thing. It's experiential. One who has quieted their mind has experienced who they are. What have they experienced? They've experienced a certain quality of peacefulness. They've experienced a certain quality of expansiveness, a quality of not being affected by anything of this world, not even needing anything of this world, feeling content within. Those are the things one experiences through meditation. And when you've experienced them, there's no way to unexperience that. That becomes the highest reality that you've been able to touch. Not that there isn't more, there's way more than that. But that becomes now your radar that guides you towards that higher state of consciousness. So we'll be discussing that as well. All right, so there are four purusharthas, four things that are in the Vedas they talk about that we devote our life to. It's very normal. It's not that it's bad or anything, but the purusharthas, the things that we devote our life to, are dharma, which is our duties, our responsibilities, the things we've got to do, whether that's towards our family, our job, whatever else. Artha, that is the act of making money. And kama, then the desire to enjoy our senses, right? These are the three main ones. And then the fourth one is actually moksha, the desire for liberation. When you've had it all, you've done it all, then you realize, there's got to be more to life than this. This isn't quite where I wanted to be in my 40s or 50s or 60s, wherever that thing awakens in you. For some, it awakens very early, in their teens or even when they're not even teenagers. Depends. Different people are at different stages of the journey. So what we need to know is this. There are certain states of consciousness. This is what we've been discussing. Goodness, passion, and ignorance. Sattva, rajas, and tamas. And there are certain qualities that we have when we are in the mode of goodness. There's certain qualities in the mode of passion, and certain qualities in the mode of ignorance. Now let's explore this further. In the mode of goodness, we have the qualities we have are self-control. In the mode of passion, it's lust or desire. Lust is not just sex, but it's also desire. We're filled with desire. We are consumed by desires. We want and we need, and we're chasing our desires. And in the mode of ignorance, there's a lot of anger. So if you want the simple version, this is it. In the mode of goodness, there's self-control. Control over the mind, control over the senses, therefore lots of clarity, therefore lots of control over one's reactions to things. One is able to be more in a state of the observer. One is able to, all of that comes from self-control. Self-control is not just controlling the mind, it's controlling the senses. It's controlling desire. It's controlling even the sense of ego or identity of who I think I am. Control over all of that. Most of us are so busy. In the mode of passion, a person is not looking at controlling themselves, they're looking at controlling the world. That's the big difference. And the mode of ignorance, one is feeling that one is out of control. The world is out of control. So therefore there's a lot of anger. See, self-control leads one towards a more peaceful state. When you're trying to control the world, then you're full of desire and lust. And when you feel out of control, then there is anger and frustration and helplessness and depression. Now, we'll look at different aspects. These are all described by Krishna in the Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th Canto, chapter number 25. That's where we're getting all this information from. It's really amazing that more than 5,000 years ago, some would say about 7,000, but whatever, all of this was documented. All of this was known at that time as well. They knew deep kind of psychology that arose from an awareness of different states of consciousness. All right, so and we're going to look at now different aspects of life and how they're affected by these modes of nature. So the first one we're looking at is worship. Worship in sattva gun, shows up as loving devotion towards God. It shows up as offering one's work. Whatever you do as work, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, do it as an offering unto me. And it shows up as a lack of material attachment, not being so attached to material things. So people in Sattva Gun, as I was saying earlier, are more focused on things that elevate the consciousness and make one come closer to themselves and to God, that help one find a deeper, more deeper purpose in life. Now, worship in the mode of rajas or passion is, of course, for material benefit. You're going to God, God, give me this, give me that. God, I have these problems, solve my problem for me. And if you can't solve my problem for me, then I don't believe in you. So it's all about material benefit. What can I get out of God? And in tamas, it's about violence. Violence sometimes to oneself or some violence to others, because there's a lot of anger. And that anger then leads to wanting to hurt others. And that can come up online where people are vicious and mean and nasty. They're in the mode of ignorance. And it can show up in the way people talk to you when they're, again, throwing their anger at you, when they're blasting away at you and saying mean and hurtful things. They're in the mode of ignorance. And you cannot pull them out of that. And there's no point. When someone's in the mode of ignorance, they need to work on themselves to get out of that. It's not going to happen from you. So their anger is so deep. Their anger is actually because they're feeling so lost. They're feeling so helpless. They're feeling so incapable. Their life is not in their control. The person in the mode of passion is busy trying to control everything. But the person in the mode of ignorance doesn't feel in control at all. All right. So here's what happens now. The modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, bind us. They manifest in the mind. They induce attachment to the mind and to the things of the world. They cause us a sense of attachment to our own body and to the objects of the world. And we'll take a look at them in a different way now. So the main quality of sattva, the mode of goodness, is that sattva is luminous. It's effulgent. It's a sense of, it's like when you have an aha moment, or when you step out into nature, you feel a sense of expansiveness. You feel a sense of freedom. Your mind is now quiet and you feel so wonderful. Sometimes it happens on vacation. So that's why it's described as luminous and pure and auspicious. Auspicious means it's a state in which you can see the goodness in yourself, in others, and in the world around you. A person in the mode of passion and ignorance does not see the good in others and does not see the good in the world. They're only looking at, how can I make things happen? Right? There's a sense of wanting to manipulate and control. But in the mode of sattva, mode of goodness, one sees the beauty that exists all around. Now, when sattva is predominating over ignorance and passion, then one gains happiness, virtue, knowledge, etc. The symptoms of sattva are clear consciousness, detachment from the senses and mind, fearlessness, and a realization of self and God. So, ask yourself, is that something you would like to have? Is that important to you? My guess is that if you're here listening to this Bhagavatam, then that is an important part of your life. And if it is, then keep in mind, that is only found in the mode of goodness. There is a state beyond the mode of goodness. We'll be discussing that towards the end. But this is the highest state for most people in this world. Okay? Before we introduce the spiritual element, we'll just look at the mode of goodness. And this does not even have to be so spiritually minded. It's just getting to the stage of feeling peaceful and relaxed and at harmony with the world. But that's just the beginning. It's not the ultimate thing. So, of course, and this state one also has all the other things: clear consciousness, detachment from the senses and mind, fearlessness, and a sense of realization of the self and God. And then the effects of sattva, the mode of goodness, are that it's almost like you know the qualities of the demigods, the devas, come within you. There is an alert wakefulness. and you find yourself elevated to a higher consciousness. And persons who have achieved the mode of goodness, after they leave this body, they go to what are called the heavenly planets, places on this earth or in other planets in the universe where life is even better than it is on earth. So again, none of those are permanent. Heavenly planets, hellish planets. The earth has those on right here in front of us. There are places that are more hellish. There are places that are more heavenly on this earth. And there are places in other planets that are more heavenly and more hellish. So where you go at the time of death depends on your consciousness. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that wherever and whatever your mind is fixed upon at the time of leaving this body, to that state you will go in your next life. So what does it mean, wherever and whatever your mind is fixed upon? Well, notice how most people, when they're dying, have a flashback of their entire life happening. There's this review of the life that they lived. That review, what you experienced and went through and how you processed it and how you lived and what you did, all of that is a summary of your consciousness, which is now determining where you're going to go next. As you sow, so shall you reap. It's very simple. Not some great mystery. Then in the mode of rajas or passion, there's a lot of attachment to material things, attachment to one's possessions, I, me, mine. There's a lot of separatism. You see yourself as being better than others. You want to be able to go up the corporate ladder, or you want to be better than the Joneses. You want to, you always are in competition with everyone, and so there's a lot of separatism. There's a lot of activity, doing. You're constantly doing. You're wanting to, because because you want to achieve, there's a constant, non-stop sense of doing. It's very hard to stop and relax. When Rajogun, the mode of passion, predominates, one begins to work hard. You want prestige and wealth, but at the same time you experience anxiety and struggle. I think a lot of people can relate to this one, the mode of passion. Then there are certain symptoms of the mode of passion. There's a distortion of intellect because there's too much activity going on. You don't think clearly because you tend to be so caught up in doing that very often you don't realize or think about what impact it's having on you, on your health, on your family, on the people close to you, and even on the people who you are serving, the community. Let's say you're making a product and that product is making you a lot of money. So very often you'll become blind to the idea that what impact is it having on people? I'm making some food or some garments or some product. And what is the environmental impact? What is the social impact? What is the impact on myself, my family? We just tend to forget all that and get so consumed by our goals, by our desire to achieve, by our desire to succeed. And all of that leads us down this rabbit hole in which we lose sight of things. So that's why it says a distortion of intellect due to too much activity. Our senses now become entangled. In the mode of passion, they become entangled with mundane objects. Oh, I want the better house, the better car, the next one, the latest one, the greatest one. And our physical organs, our body tends to go into an unhealthy condition. And at the same time, our mind is unsteady and often perplexed, confused, even though you think you know everything. Certain other effects that the mode of passion has on us, the demoniac qualities become strong. Now keep in mind, when the Vedas talk about demonic qualities, they're referring to asura. Asura means that those are not divine qualities, they are the opposite of divine qualities. Divine qualities would be like in the mode of goodness, where you're peaceful and you're calm and you're spiritual and all of that. But now it's centered around greed, and it's centered around accumulating and power and at any cost sometimes, right? And being able to achieve at any cost. So now you tend to do things that may be hurtful to yourself and others. And that's what they mean by demonic qualities, not in the biblical sense of the word of some guy with horns, and no. They mean non-spiritual. Sura. Sura is the divine persons who are in the mode of goodness, and asura are the people who are not in the mode of goodness and therefore in the mode of passion or ignorance. So the demonic qualities become strong. And to further understand demonic qualities, the Bhagavad Gita has a huge list of that in the 16th chapter. You will probably end up dreaming a lot while you're sleeping, and you remain after you die in the world of human beings. So a person who is very rajasic, that means in the mode of passion, will not elevate to the higher material or higher planets in the material world, but will stay at the level of earth, at the level of human beings, and keep transmigrating through different kinds of human bodies. Sometimes as male, sometimes as female, sometimes in this country and sometimes in another country. Some of us think, oh, we're in the best country on earth. We are the greatest. We are. But there were other countries that were the greatest at one time. Some of them have become very poor and are struggling. Tomorrow that can happen to this country. There's no saying. Some people talk about empires and how empires have risen and fallen. And this has happened to everyone, from the Roman Empire, the Chinese, India, the Mughal Empire. It's happened all over. The Napoleonic, the Greek, it's been everywhere. And today, the British Empire, the Spanish Empire, and now it's America, the American Empire. No one knows what will happen. But whatever goes up does come down. That's just the nature of life. So in all of that, what we're trying to get at is that the mode of passion, rajas, will keep us here in this world, keep us wanting to achieve and do, and keep on trying to strive. And no matter how much we have, when we realize this isn't fulfilling me, this isn't working, it's then that we wake up. Sometimes it takes many, many lifetimes to get to that point. And then we begin to inquire about what else can there be. Then we come to the mode of ignorance, tamas. When tamas predominates, one experiences that one feels dull. One's intelligence is not very bright. You'll notice there are a lot of people like that. And they're constantly complaining about stuff. They're not very happy, and they're constantly complaining, and they're often finding fault with others. They're often putting others down. They're often very busy in sort of magnifying the faults of others and thinking of themselves as perfectly okay. I don't do any wrong, but everybody else does. Look at that person. Look at that person. Look at what they're doing. Look at what they're doing. Deflecting from their own inner unhappiness. And this creates a kind of illusion that they live in. When you're in the mode of ignorance, you tend to sleep a lot. And you have false ideas and false hopes and false expectations. And because there's a lot of anger within you, it tends to be violent. There's a lack of higher awareness in the mode of ignorance. One is unable to concentrate. One's mind is actually pretty messed up. And there's a lot of ignorance and depression. So the effects of tamas are that the strength of the most wicked increases. In other words, one tends to become more and more nasty, more and more hateful, more and more angry, increasingly. And of course, such people tend to have, ultimately will fall into lower and lower births. In other words, in their next life, they will go into lower and lower states of consciousness. It is very important that we elevate ourselves with our mind. It's through our mind that we will either elevate ourselves or degrade ourselves. When we elevate our consciousness, we go to more elevated destinations. We experience greater happiness and peace and love and satisfaction. When we degrade ourselves, then we end up you see all these people all around us so angry, so caught up in criticizing, judging, putting each other down. But that's all in the mode of ignorance. And that results in a gradual decline into lower life forms, whether in this planet or on others. More hellish conditions. That's where it leads. So ultimately, one must learn how to transcend the modes of nature, how to go beyond them. And this is where we come into the more spiritual aspect. Those who are free from the influence of all modes of nature come to Krishna, come to God. To transcend. Transcendence means to transcend the modes of nature, to transcend the influence of the world upon us. See, not only are our mind, our ego, our subconscious, our body, our senses, our desires, and all the impressions we've gained from the world, not only is all of that controlling us, and the stars control us, the astrology, and then there's the modes of nature, our state of consciousness. All of that is controlling us, and we are like puppets on a string. We think we're independent, we're free, we're not. So we want to transcend, get out of this muck, out of this mess that we're in. And that transcendence is what we want in our hearts. We just don't know that it's actually available to us, and it's available to us here and now. We think that transcendence can only be attained, and this is not your fault. This is what religions have kept saying, is that only after you die will you go to some heaven, or only when you die will you come to merge into the light. But this is nonsense. Transcendence can happen here and now. It has happened to many, many thousands and even tens of thousands of highly evolved beings who have lived and walked on this planet. And if they could do it, we can do it. I'm certainly not there, but I'm working on it. And I would love to invite you to join me so that we can all work on it together and support each other. So the idea of transcendence is to become free of the impact, not only of your mind, senses and all of that, and of the world and all of that, but also of the modes of nature that have been acting upon you and affecting your consciousness. The idea is that we need to become free. And once you understand that, the work becomes easier. So now let's take a look, a few more things about the states of consciousness called the Sattva Gun, Rajagun and Tamagun, the mode of goodness, passion and ignorance. When we work in the mode of Sattva, and now we're looking at application, then work is performed as an offering to God. And that kind of work which is done as an offering to God is free of attachment to the results. Krishna points this out in the Bhagavad Gita, that whatever work you do as work, do it as an offering unto me. And then in this way, you will be free of the attachment to the results of your work. And so that's what work in goodness looks like. However, work in the mode of passion is blinded by personal desire, and one is very attached to enjoying the results. Work in the mode of ignorance is impelled by violence and envy, and one is unaware of right and wrong. So you can imagine that one who is unaware of right and wrong and is driven by violence and envy, what kind of horrible and horrific things such a person could do. Now, the same thing when we talk in terms of knowledge, again, the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance play a part there. Knowledge in the mode of goodness is absolute knowledge, meaning knowledge of the absolute truth or God. Knowledge in the mode of passion is based on dualities, based on all the stuff of this world. The mode of ignorance is basically based on materialism. Very often it's on the lack of materialism when there's the mode of passion, but it can also be that very materialist, looking at the world as if everything is generated by matter. Instead of understanding in the mode of goodness that everything is generated from spirit, that everything is created by God, one begins to think that everything is just a product of matter. So one's consciousness has become materialized, And so one sees everything from that lens. And so when somebody is in that state of consciousness, it's very hard to be able to get them to understand something like God. You can try, but they don't want to understand. They've come to think this life is all there is. Everything happened by some chance biochemical combination, and that's it. That's why that kind of atheism becomes a religion of its own. Completely closed-minded, completely dogmatic, completely unwilling to consider anything other than itself. You have the religious fanatics, but you also have the atheistic fanatics. They're in the same boat as far as I'm concerned. And beyond this kind of knowledge of goodness, of course, is in the absolute knowledge, but transcendental knowledge is one that actually frees you from this world. Transcendental knowledge is that which liberates you, provides moksha. And that liberation brings you closer to God. True liberation brings you to the place of love of God. And I don't mean God in some Abrahamic religious kind of sense where he's some horrible guy who's judging you and stuff like that. But I mean God who is the embodiment of sweetness and kindness and love. And that is Sri Krishna. Now, even something like where you live, right? That can be affected by these modes of nature. So your residence or your place of living can be, for example, in the mode of goodness would be a forest. In the mode of passion would be a town or city. But in the mode of ignorance would be a gambling house or a place of ill repute, so to speak. So again, affected by one's consciousness. Why forest? Because in ancient times you'll see that that's where people went to meditate. Now that could be a farm, it could be someplace in nature, but that's where you'll find it most easy to be able to connect with the divine, most easy to be able to have a peaceful mind. Because nature is actually God's energy present everywhere. And when you're there in that and you're present to that and you're meditating there, then you're soaking in that energy and feeling extremely wonderful. So in the mode of goodness, people tend to be more in nature or a farm or more forest. People in the mode of passion tend to want to live in towns and cities where they can fulfill their goals and achieve their desires. People in the mode of ignorance, they're more busy with trying to get rich quick schemes or whatever else they could be getting into. Could be, like it says, your gambling house, but it could be any other kind of place where people are engaged in perhaps the most degraded activities that one can get into, including crime, including violence, all of that. And transcendental activities, when someone wants to have that experience, then one lives in a temple or an ashram or some place where there's like a monastery or any place which is completely devoted to God. So these are different places of residence, and this is how they're affected by the modes of nature. Now, even something like faith can be affected by the modes of nature. Someone in the mode of goodness will focus on spiritual life. Someone in the mode of passion will focus on karmic work. Right? The work you do is karmic work. Unless you take that same work and you now devote it to God, you do it for God, well, now then it goes into the mode of goodness. And the person in the mode of ignorance will focus on irreligious work. It could be criminal work. It could be any kind of things that are against the law even. Right? So everything is, and transcendental work is when you work in devotion to God, devotional service or bhakti. Food can be in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. For example, vegetarian food or vegan food, which is wholesome, pure, obtained without any difficulty. What that difficulty means, without harming others, without harming the animals, without harming the fish, without harming chickens, without killing them, without causing pain and grief to them. That food is in the mode of goodness, sattvic food. Then there's food in the mode of ignorance, of passion. that gives immediate pleasure to the senses. And this would be everything from meat and fish and eggs to alcohol. It's all for giving pleasure to the senses. In the mode of ignorance, food that is unclean and causes distress. So very often things like eating at fast food places, that would be in the mode of ignorance. Food that has been so modified, so doctored in a way, right? So synthesized that it's barely food even. It might fill your stomach, but it is extremely unhealthy. In the mode of passion, you might be saying, oh no, I want grass-fed beef, or I want grass-fed blah, 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 whatever it might be. Yes, sure, grass-fed, but you're not looking at the harm and violence that was done there. But okay, you're trying to be better than the person in the mode of ignorance, but it's not in the mode of goodness. And the person who's in the mode of passion is so attached to their sense enjoyment and how it tastes and how it feels that they don't care what that animal had to go through. They're not bothered. It doesn't matter. What matters is my senses. What matters is my enjoyment. What matters is that it feels good to me. I decide what I want. So they don't even want to hear about anything else. And that's the sad reality. And there's not a whole lot you can do. And food that is transcendental is called prasad. Food that is offered to Krishna, offered to God with love and devotion, cooked for God, offered to God, and then served to everyone to enjoy. So even food can be affected by the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Then there's happiness. Happiness in the mode of goodness is derived from the self. You feel it within you. It's not external. It's not based on something external happening or not happening. It's not based upon your job. It's not based upon your partner. It's not based upon the things you have or don't have. Your happiness is self-generated. It's not about a positive attitude. The self here is the soul. Yes, it can be a positive attitude too, but that's very flaky. Sometimes it'll be positive, sometimes negative. The mode of goodness is consistently. One feels happy internally. One's happiness is self-derived. It's not that you're saying, oh, I need my partner to make me happy. No. I am happy and I choose to be with this partner. That happiness is self-generated. In the mode of passion, your happiness is based on the gratification of the senses. And in the mode of ignorance, your happiness is actually more like delusion and degradation. The more degraded, the more horrific. It's just, you're in a really warped state of mind. But when there's transcendental happiness, that transcendental happiness is when you associate with the divine, with God, with Krishna. When you feel that divine love, that is transcendental happiness. There is no happiness like that. Not only is it derived from the self, but now it is derived from a higher source, from the source of all happiness, because Krishna is Satchit Ananda. Ananda means bliss. Divine or God is inherently blissful. Ananda, Anandamayo Bhyasa. And that Ananda quality, when you are communing with the divine, that comes into you. And that quality now fills you. So that is transcendental happiness. And then we come to the point where you actually look at freedom from the modes of nature, from goodness, passion, and ignorance. And this happens when we work in devotional service, when we associate with the devotees of God, and we engage only with those things that are in the mode of goodness. And we pacify the mind and its conditioning. So this is possible for all of us. And Krishna says that one is satisfied just by experiencing my form. See, that form of God is so beautiful, is so satisfying, is so deliciously adorable, And one who meditates upon this form falls in love with the divine, with God, with Krishna. So this is our hope for all of us, is that we can become immersed in that kind of transcendence. A few pointers to bring up here now is that, let's see. Okay. We were talking about absolute knowledge earlier, and I just thought, let me explain to you a little bit about that. Because Krishna says here that in that spiritual knowledge of his supreme personality is transcendental to ordinary religious knowledge in the mode of goodness. In the mode of goodness, one understands the existence of a higher spiritual nature within all things. In the mode of passion, one acquires a more scientific knowledge of the material body, and in the mode of ignorance, one fixes one's mind on sense objects without any higher awareness, perceiving things just as a child or a mentally challenged person does. Srila Jiva Goswami elaborately explains in his commentary on this verse that the material mode of goodness does not award perfect knowledge of the absolute truth. He quotes from the Srimad Bhagavatam, proving that many great devas or demigods in the mode of goodness could not understand the transcendental personality of Sri Krishna. In the material mode of goodness, one becomes pious or religious, aware of higher spiritual nature. On the spiritual platform of purified goodness or Shuddha Sattva, however, one establishes a direct loving relationship with the absolute truth, rendering service to the Supreme Lord rather than merely maintaining a connection to mundane piety. See, in the mode of goodness, it can be that mundane piety. But in transcendence, there can be a deep connection, a loving connection with the Supreme Lord. In the mode of passion, the conditioned soul speculates about the reality of his own existence and of the world around him, and considers speculatively the existence of the kingdom of God. So there's a bunch of, guesswork, imagination. Oh, God is light, God is energy, God is in heaven, whatever. In the mode of ignorance, one acquires knowledge for sense gratification, absorbing the mind in varieties of eating, sleeping, defending, and sex without any higher purpose. Thus, within the modes of nature, the conditioned souls are trying to gratify their senses or free them from sense gratification, but they cannot directly engage themselves in liberated spiritual activities till they come to the transcendental position of Krishna consciousness, which is beyond the modes of nature. All right, so in the last few verses of this chapter, Krishna says, therefore material substance, place, result of activity, time, knowledge, work, the former of work, faith, state of consciousness, species of life, and destination after death are all based on the three modes of material nature. All states of material being are related to the interaction of the enjoying soul and material nature. See, we're all just trying to enjoy this world. And we are then influenced by the modes of material nature. So whether seen, heard, or only conceived within the mind, they are without exception constituted of the modes of nature. All these different phases of conditioned life arise from work born of the modes of material nature. The living entity who conquers these modes, manifested from the mind, can dedicate himself to me by the process of devotional service or bhakti yoga, and thus attain pure love for me. Therefore, having achieved this human form of life which allows one to develop full knowledge, those who are intelligent should free themselves from all contamination of the modes of nature and engage exclusively in loving service to me. A wise sage, free from all material association and unbewildered, should subdue his senses and worship me. He should conquer the modes of passion and ignorance by engaging himself only with those things in the mode of goodness. Then, being fixed in devotional service or bhakti yoga, the sage should also conquer the material mode of goodness by indifference towards the modes. Thus, pacified within his mind, the spirit soul, freed from the modes of nature, gives up the very cause of his conditioned life and attains me. Freed from the subtle conditioning of the mind and from the modes of nature born of material consciousness, the living entity becomes completely satisfied, experiencing my transcendental form. He no longer searches for enjoyment in the external energy, nor does he contemplate or remember such enjoyment within himself. That is just such a beautiful conclusion. See, satisfied by experiencing my transcendental form. That transcendental form is revealed in the heart of one who is engaged in sincere devotional service. As the chitta, as the consciousness becomes cleaned and cleansed, one is able to experience and see and witness the transcendental form of Sri Krishna within the heart. That's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said in his wonderful prayers, Cheto darpanamarjanam, that one should clean the consciousness, the chitta. Cheto, cheta means chitta. Darpan, the mirror. Marjanam is to clean. Clean the mirror of the heart, of the consciousness, so that one can then see the transcendental form of Sri Krishna. And Krishna says that one who has experienced that no longer searches for enjoyment in this world, nor does he contemplate or remember such enjoyment, because he is fully satisfied within himself. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate your presence. And I look forward to seeing you next week. I'm here every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern time. And I'll see you next week. Take care. Hare Krishna.